Hi, I'm Dr. Rob Silverman, Amazon best-selling author of Inside Out Health and host of Proven Health Alternatives. Today's guest, Dr. Timothy Stark, has a plethora of degrees after his name, and without question, he's one of my most esteemed colleagues worldwide. He is a leader in the area of chiropractic and human performance. He runs a very unique human performance center in Northwestern University's Health Sciences. This has been a center that he's been working with for the last 5.5 years that's really generated tremendous interest and tremendous sports outcomes within 12 specific sports teams. He does a great job during the podcast webcast of delineating the difference between chiropractic care, integrative care, functional care, and traditional care. I hope everybody can listen. Hey everybody, Dr. Rob Silverman here, Proven Health Alternatives. I have my esteemed colleague, Dr. Timothy Stark here. I have to tell you everybody that get ready, get the pen out, get the paper out. He is going to share some true, what I call intellectual, nerdy, applicable chiropractic takeaways. Dr. Stark, how are you today?
Fine, Dr. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing great. So I have this great bio that I want to share with everybody. You are originally from North Dakota, one of those very big states in the Midwest.
Yes, sir.
You know, us New Yorkers have that little swag, but you have a master's in philosophy, an MBA. You're a doctor of chiropractic. You have a DACB, SP, ICSC, CSCS, EMT, and FICC. Interesting. You also have a bachelor's degree from North Dakota University in exercise physiology. You went to the Northwestern College of Chiropractic where you have your Doctor of Chiropractic degree, and you've pioneered an American residency in the specialty of sports injuries and rehabilitation. We're going to put your bio up in the comment section because it's tremendous. You have a tremendous amount of publications on the topic of physical rehab and strength and conditioning. Your current research efforts are directed towards human performance and rehab and addressing specifically recovery, injury prevention, and performance enhancement. This is where we're going to spend a lot of time in this podcast. In the last 8 years, you've transitioned from being a full-time lecturer and chair of the clinical science department at National University of Health Sciences to the dean of College of Chiropractic at Northwestern, and now, most recently, the director of human performance at Northwestern Health Sciences University. You coordinate the postgraduate education programs there for the specialties in sports chiropractic, physical rehab over the last 20 years. And you also chair the Educational Commission for the Federation of International Sports Chiropractic. Recently, as far as 2017, you were awarded the Academy of the Year Award by the ACA. That is a tremendously prestigious award. And in addition to that, that same year, you got the duplex. You were the American Chiropractic Sports Council Chiropractor of the Year. Very, very impressive career so far. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Even though, I mean, I read your resume, but everybody wants to know who you are, what you do. Who is this guy?
You bet. You know, I'm a small town boy from upper Midwest, North Dakota, middle of the country, pretty far away from any metro area. Minneapolis is probably the largest metro area, so never really experienced big city life. Never really got out of the state of North Dakota for my entire growing up, and maybe in my early adulthood. First time I ever probably got out of the state of North Dakota was in 2000 for the Olympics in Sydney. After I finished my schooling and my residency at Northwestern Health Sciences University, I get called up, and I actually went down to Atlanta, I guess, in 1996 and worked the Olympics down there just as a resident when I was in my residency, and from 1996 to 1998. And then, you know, a few years later, I'm invited to go to Sydney Olympics in 2000, jump on a plane. I think it might have been the first time I was actually as a passenger. I was in the Air Force Guard for 10 years, and I was a crew chief on a C-130 Hercules. So I went up and down on cargo aircraft, but I was usually in the cockpit with the pilots working on some things. So that first long flight to Sydney was quite a learning experience, and having to work the Atlanta Olympics and Sydney Olympics and other international games. What an awesome opportunity as a young sports chiropractor to work with some of the best sports chiropractors in the world. The items that you listed on the bio, it may be from hard work, being a hardworking upper Midwestern North Dakota boy, but would never have been able to put those items on the list if I didn't have proper mentorship. And so, you know, I chalk it up to all the people that have blazed the trail for me. I've created some of my own path, but for the most part, there were already some footprints that I could step in to make things a little bit easier. So it's all you guys, my mentors that have already blazed a trail, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done to make things easier for people like me.
You are certainly blazing a trail. You're taking roads that other people haven't and paving roads and cements for future chiropractors and healthcare practitioners to go down. So, you know, with that being said, I know your passion's the Human Performance Center. What is it, and what do you have going on there at Northwestern?
Yeah, the Human Performance Center is a rather new entity on campus at Northwestern Health Sciences University. It's about 5.5 years old. When I was the dean of the chiropractic program in 2013 through 2014, we had a vice president of our clinic system. His name was Scott Munsterman. Very, very smart guy, forward thinker in chiropractic. He was involved with legislation in South Dakota. So a very smart guy. And he was looking at all the revenue systems within the clinic systems at Northwestern. And he saw one guy on campus that was had a waiting list of patients coming in, and he was actually positive on that spreadsheet of bringing in additional money. And so Dr. Munsterman said, we need more sports on campus. And so we put together a small organization of individuals on campus, including that one guy, a provider, sports chiropractor, athletic trainer. And they met a few times, and they wanted to create what's called a Sports Chiropractic Institute. And so they met a few months, and then somebody said, Stark has a bit of a reputation internationally. Maybe he should be consulting with us as well. So Scott called me, and I was involved then with the meetings. They asked, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't know what you're doing. Tell me about the Sports Chiropractic Institute. And so I understood the reasons why he wanted to bring in more revenue, but also maybe create a larger entity on campus at the university. And I said, I think sports chiropractic and having a Sports Chiropractic Institute is very myopic. Can we broaden that a little bit more and call it human performance, so that it's not just the athletes that are coming here? It's maybe Uncle Bob who had a knee replacement and they're seeing a chiropractor, but the chiropractor might not feel comfortable doing rehab for that knee replacement, and we can maybe do that type of integrated service in our center. And so let's call it a Human Performance Center. So that's the direction we went. And they said, well, can you come back next month and continue consulting? Well, over month after month of consulting and building out this process, it got so big to where Dr. Munsterman said, I want you to build it and direct it, and could not clearly do a good job as being a dean and to build this center. So I stepped away from the dean position. We have now an awesome dean, Trevor Fauchang, here at Northwestern, and I've been building and directing the Human Performance Center since then. The center itself has morphed into a couple of different business models, and currently 5.5 years later, what we do is physically we have a space, and the space might be about 4,000 square feet or so, and it includes services to 12 teams that we take care of. The 12 teams come to our campus and they receive integrated care. Integrated care meaning the athlete comes in, they pay one fee, the cash fee, they pay one fee, and they get a choice of sports chiropractic, sports massage, Chinese medicine, usually needling and cupping. Sometimes herbs are prescribed, not very frequent. They have a choice of seeing our sports nutritionist for consulting. Dr. Heather Flatgard is one of my fellows in sports nutrition. If you haven't met her yet, Dr. Rob, I hope you do at some point in time. Sponsored by Nutridyne, of course, mutual friends of ours, right? At Nutridyne.
Right, absolutely. Great company.
Great company, yep. And then mental performance. We have a gentleman with a PhD, and he does mental performance for our athletes. So and physiotherapies, including laser and heat hot packs and things like that. So that's an integrated practice. An integrated practice meaning multiple providers, multiple practitioners with different skill sets, and working together for that one person, that one patient, and that patient has particular goals. And so we have an integrated practice that serves these 12 teams. The 12 teams range from NFL alumni. So we see some former NFL players coming in, and they might be limping because of what they did in their years of playing football. And really, honestly, all they want to do is play golf at this point in time. And so we're excited to help with them, but they have that high performance mentality still. They want to be helped. They're going to be rather particular in the type of help that they receive, and they know what their outcomes are. They're very goal oriented, like high performance athletes are. And we also work with a number of pro teams. There is a professional women's gridiron football team called the Minnesota Vixen that we take care of. We've been working with them for over 5 years. And most recently, we signed with the Strike Ultimate, which is a professional women's ultimate Frisbee team. It's a recent expansion team in Minnesota. So these are not high profile teams like the Minnesota Vikings and the Timberwolves, et cetera, but they are clearly high performance athletes that clearly don't have the money to have a large athletic training staff or sports medicine staff. So we step in. And with my fellows that I have working with the Human Performance Center, we have 4 of them, and the interns that are very engaged of doing sports chiropractic. We vet them pretty intensely. We probably turn away 50% now of the interns that apply to the Human Performance Center as an intern. They have to check all the boxes in regards to being just a good person, having good clinical reasoning, and then particular skills of athletic taping and soft tissue therapy, things like that when they come in. And so we're able to deliver integrated sports care in a very affordable manner to these 12 teams. We do some things off campus as well at a university and a high school, and but for the most part on campus, that's what the Human Performance Center is. We also, one other thing, Rob, is we at Northwestern started basically a minor in sports chiropractic in the chiropractic program. And we also have a minor in the Chinese medicine program, and we call it the sports emphasis. So they go through their core curriculum, both Chinese medicine and chiropractic, they go through their core curriculum, and then they could take additional courses in sports care, allowing them to have sports emphasis written on their diploma and their transcript. That's basically, and the Human Performance Center manages all that curriculum.
That's great, because I've met a bunch of your fellows, and it's exciting to see young chiros who are going to take the field of chiropractic to another level, and the field of healthcare to another level. And going through your program, every one of them was so much more ready than I was coming out of chiropractic school. When I came out of chiro school, it was a little over 20 years ago. It was chiropractic diagnosis, some soft tissue, and now they really have a great emphasis, and sports is a great choice. It's interesting. You use the word integrative. So I'm going to hit you with a couple of quick questions so people understand. What's the difference between integrative care and what we would call the traditional care now?
And even integrated care. Integrated care is even different than integrative and traditional care. So traditional care is very monodisciplinary. You might go in to see a medical physician and you have basically one brain appealing to your sore throat or your neck pain or your headache. And that's traditional. That would be traditional care. Even traditional chiropractic care, if we're talking to the chiropractic audience, traditional chiropractic care might be going in, again, complaining about a headache, probably seeing one provider other than the front desk person, maybe seeing that one provider, having an exam by that one provider, having treatment by that one provider. And that treatment might be just one form of care, right? A lot of doctors of chiropractic adjust, and that's it. They probably don't do anything else. That would be probably traditional monodisciplinary care. Integrative care would be that same doctor of chiropractic or that medical physician or any healthcare provider, but one provider providing multiple different types of services. It might be joint manipulation. It could be physiotherapy such as laser, could be nutrition consulting. So Dr. Rob, you're an integrative provider. You've got a toolbox that has a number of interventions within that toolbox. And you can open that up in that toolbox, you can grab whatever tool that you think is going to be best for managing that patient. That's providing integrative care. One provider. It's still monodisciplinary. And that's okay, right? Mm-hmm. And there's evidence to show that an integrative provider probably manages a patient in a better manner, faster outcomes, etc. Maybe not necessarily safer, but maybe faster outcomes compared to somebody who just does one intervention. Then you have integrated care. Integrated care is, again, multiple providers in one clinical environment, all managing that same patient, maybe with the same condition. And like the Human Performance Center is exactly that. Our athlete can come in and they can see the sports chiropractor intern, they can see the sports massage therapist, they can see Chinese medicine, they probably can get a sports nutrition consult while they're there, all for that same price, all one flat fee. That's integrated care. And there's evidence to show that multiple providers seem to be, when provided to that one patient, have better outcomes. It's an exciting environment to be in because it's just my one little brain. But now with the integrated environment, I've got multiple other brains that I can kind of lean on, especially Chinese medicine. I know very little about it, right? I've had it done to me, but I know very little about especially Chinese herbal therapy, right? And I can lean on them and say, instead of this patient with anxiety prior to a football game, right? The adjusting might help a little bit. I can probably talk them out of the crazy tree with some mental performance, but are there some Chinese medicines as well that she can take prior to a game that might benefit them?
That's great. So we agree that for chiropractic, we want to be more integrated, but there are chiropractors in integrated care now, and I think people are missing that. People think that you go to the chiropractor and just get an adjustment, although we all can adjust and we are the best at it. The envelope has been spread and stretched, but there are many institutions now that are using chiropractic in an integrated setting, and some the chiropractors even the lead. I mean, we go back to you mentioned the Olympics, the 2016 Olympics. The medical director was a chiropractor.
Right.
So yep. Without question, your vision is 21st.5 century. So we talked about integrated and integrative. What about functional?
Yeah, what about functional?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was recently asked by my students, so I teach in the core curriculum as well as the sports medicine electives, and I had a student ask me, how was the question phrased? It was something about, do you have a neurological approach when you're examining and treating a patient, or do you have more of a functional approach when you're examining and treating a patient? And, you know, I do, and it made me reflect back on it because I never really thought much about it. I truly watch that patient stand from a seated position when they're in the reception room, and when I walk them back down the hallway into my exam room, and I'm assessing their function, right? It's kind of hard to visually see neurological function. You could probably see foot drop and maybe the way they carry their arm, and you can maybe make some assumptions that there's some neurological issues there. But it still results in function. I think function is probably a large, if we were looking at a pyramid example, like the nutrition pyramid way back when we used to talk about the nutrition pyramid, the stuff at the bottom seemed to be the most important. And I think function is at the bottom of that pyramid. I think we as healthcare providers, especially doctors of chiropractic, manual therapists, if you will, I hate to maybe use that term because some people are going to be offended by it, but we're interested in movement. We're interested in general function. And then the next things to consider is, well, is it a specific joint restriction or is it a neurological problem? And so when I approach a patient, I do probably approach them in a holistic manner and look at function first before I then dig deeper into the neurology.
Well, here it comes. Chiropractic versus what we would call traditional care. How would you define that?
Traditional chiropractic care?
I was going to say just traditional care, but if you want to do traditional chiropractic and you want to go for it, go ahead. Be my guest.
Yeah, well, I think traditional care, reflects back to what I had said earlier about being monodisciplinary. Traditional care, you go into the hospital, you go into the chiropractic office, you see the receptionist, and they send you back and you see one provider, right? And it's probably very fast. The examination might be very focused on your particular problem. Medical physicians might write you a script to manage that pain or inflammation or whatever the case may be. Doctors of chiropractic, clearly the fundamental intervention that we use for chiropractic is joint manipulation, the adjustment, whatever term you want to use. But I think then as we tear away that layer of traditional care and look at that next layer, that's probably when we start getting into integrative providership by that chiropractor, for example, where other than joint manipulation, now they realize, you know what, they're still in a lot of pain. I'm going to use some laser. Or I want to try to speed up some healing. So I'm going to probably use some microcurrent therapy, right? And then maybe tear away another layer and approach the biochemical components of that healing process, that recovery process, knowing that the patient is going to be leaving your office for 24 to 48 hours. How can that healing continue? And how can we empower the patient to continue to improve their health? Well, maybe some nutritional consultation would be a benefit. There's plenty of evidence for EFAs, essential fatty acids, for controlling inflammation, and magnesium for muscle spasm, et cetera. So, as we tear away these layers, I think the big ball on the outside, that's traditional care. And then if you're an integrative provider providing multiple interventions for that one patient, that's great. That's great to have that big toolbox. If I were in an integrated environment where I have other providers, I might say, you know what, I'm done with you today. I've adjusted you. We've talked about some nutrition and I've done some laser therapy, but you really need some soft tissue work. I could do it, but you know what? The person next door is my massage therapist. Fantastic. I'm going to recommend you go see my massage therapist right now. And that's integrated care. You're leaning on other providers in your office for that same patient and the same visit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's where the field is going, and I think that's how we can get the patient outcome. And it kind of makes sense being under one roof. You know, you save literally on travel, you save on time, and you get a more collective perspective.
If I can throw a hurdle in there, Rob, the problem is right now is that unless you're running a pure cash practice like we are in our Human Performance Center, if you're really dependent on insurance, you know, insurance really, unfortunately, is driving some of the services we offer. There was a cartoon that I posted a while ago, and it just came up. Somebody had liked it on my Facebook, and they said, the doctor will be right with you. He's trying to identify what diagnosis will best match your insurance, right? And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that's where we are in this country. There clearly needs to be some changes in that area. And one of the problems with integrated care is insurance doesn't know how to pay it. They simply don't have one code for integrated care to be able to provide a reimbursement check back to that clinic.
You just really pin the tail on a donkey, if you will, no pun intended. I mean, that is the problem, that even just coming in my office, or so many chiros as we both lecture worldwide, that it's not covered. So the patient is trying to save cost. And, you know, it's incumbent on all of us to take care of our health. I mean, it's all that we have. It's our most valuable asset. It's what we take with us 24/7, 365. So hopefully they make some changes. Both of us are somewhat skeptical of the change, but, you know, there's always hope. There's always hope that, you know, there'll be a couple of smart guys in the room and gals. What are the benefits of having the Human Performance Center at a learning institution versus outside?
That's probably my favorite thing about directing this Human Performance Center and growing it and morphing the business model in a way that it benefits the student. So having the benefits of having it at a learning institution like Northwestern Health Sciences is that we have students that are coming to Northwestern. Now we have students coming to Northwestern mostly because they wanted to have an opportunity to work with high performance athletes. And so now they're starting off as a trimester student, and they're working their way up to their internship. Right away, they're coming in and shadowing as younger trimester students. They're shadowing how my fellows and the sport interns are managing these high performance athletes in the integrated environment. And so even as a younger student, they're getting some experience just shadowing and seeing what that's all about. Many of them then apply to be an intern. So when they reach T7 out of 10 trimesters, our trimester 7 students become interns, and they can apply in clinical environments. So we have a lot of students now applying, a lot of interns applying for an internship. We can only take so many because we only have so many tables and so much room and so many athletes. So we take a limited number. And again, these interns have to check all the boxes. But when we do accept them as an intern, they're working with other interns that are like-minded, very sports oriented. They're working in an integrated environment, and I think integrated environments are not very common yet. And so they're getting that experience on our campus. They're working with massage therapists and interns from massage. They're working with Chinese medicine providers. So, and the mental performance and sports nutrition. So they're having an opportunity to work with these other disciplines that can benefit that athlete and do a much better job than the intern can in certain areas, right? And I think it's easy for, especially maybe doctors of chiropractic, to say, I can do everything. I can do soft tissue, I can consult nutrition and this and that. And we're trying to instill in our interns that, yes, you probably are very good, but I guarantee you my sports nutrition fellow can talk circles, can consult circles around you in regards to sports nutrition. So join your athlete with the sports nutrition fellow and learn a little bit, but see how she consults the athlete. And same thing with Chinese medicine. Our chiropractic interns in our program probably may or may not have ever seen a Chinese medicine provider. So this is an opportunity for them to work closely with an integrated environment. And one other point is our mental performance guy, he's awesome. I think I can share his story real quick. His name is Leo Lewis. And if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, especially if you've got a little bit of gray hair, we were talking about gray hair before we went online here. Yep, if you're a fan of the Minnesota Vikings and Leo Lewis was a Minnesota Viking back in his day. Well, he's got a PhD now, and we worked with him with the NFL alumni. So he came in actually as a patient. He lets me share this story. And he came in as a patient. All he really wanted to do was golf. And he's golfing in no time with our integrated approach, and he was super happy about it. And he approached me and he said, Tim, he said, what can I do for you? And I go, what do you mean, Leo? And he said, I want to do something for the Human Performance Center. I'm so appreciative of everything you've done. And I said, Leo, what do you bring to the party? And he said, well, I have a PhD. Maybe I can do some sports psychology or mental performance. I said, sold. I need a mental performance person. That's fantastic. So he volunteers his time at Northwestern and works with our athletes. But more importantly, your question was about learning institutions and the benefits of it. Leo meets with our interns as well. And I think it's very important as a sports care provider that I communicate effectively with my athlete and say things that are good and maybe say things that are bad, but the timing is appropriate. In other words, if I have a young lady who already has anxiety about playing gridiron football, tomorrow she's got a game, that intern can't do their functional evaluation and freak out saying, wow, you don't bend to the left at all. You bend really well to the right, but you don't bend to the left. That's not probably what you want to say to an athlete that's already anxious about playing the game tomorrow. And so Leo Lewis has been a gem, consulting with all of our interns of all the disciplines and just telling and explaining to them how to communicate effectively with our athletes. So the integrated approach in the Human Performance Center, I think, has been broadly, diversely a positive presence on campus at Northwestern.
That's fabulous. And I do remember Leo Lewis playing for the Vikings.
Yeah.
Even though that I'm a Giant fan, he hexed us the few times that we played you guys.
Right on.
And that's great. And it just shows that athletes do a lot after their playing days. And that's also great. What lessons do your students take away from the Human Performance Center for life and for chiropractic?
That's a great question. So what lessons do they take away? Well, here's what I'm hoping they take away. The expected outcomes of our internship is that A, they know how to manage high performance athletes. They know how to work integratedly with other providers in an environment and realize that they're not all that in a bag of chips, right? They might have some pretty good skills, but there are other providers that know at a deeper level how to provide a particular service, nutrition consulting, cupping, whatever it might be. And to maybe instill in them the idea that when they go out to practice, when they leave Northwestern, they go out and practice, open up their practice, that they maybe consider bringing in a Chinese medicine provider and work integratedly with them, or bring in a massage therapist at the very least. So again, I'm hoping that they learn with some good clinical reasoning skills, working with high performance athletes, working integratedly, and then leaving and going out and practice with a higher skill set.
Outstanding. It's very funny. When I first started practice, somebody said to me, the seed you plant is the tree you get 5 years later. So you said 5.5 years. What would you say the seed you planted is the tree that you guys have now?
Wow. I think something happened to the seed that we initially planted 5.5 years ago. Because I think what we're doing now, the business model that we have is quite different than what we initially started off with. What we initially started off with was we were going to have this Human Performance Center / clinic where we were going to work with complex cases. Again, like a knee replacement, I mentioned that case as a while ago. I think a lot of doctors of chiropractic, other healthcare providers might not feel comfortable rehabbing something like that, a complex case, for rehabilitation particularly, and we would potentially create that environment. Something occurred on campus here where another organization started creating what's called a multidisciplinary clinic for complicated cases. Well, that was our original business model. And so it made me think a little bit differently about more sports. And I just love our current business model. A different seed, I think, probably actually sprouted. And this business model of us fostering teams, we don't take care of single athletes. We've had single athletes call and say, hey, a buddy of mine is a patient of yours. I play softball and I just have knee pain. Can I come in and see you? And my question to them is he an athlete of one of these 12 teams we take care of? And if he's not, we don't see him. We send him to another clinic on campus. So we only take care of these 12 teams on campus, which I think is kind of a unique model, that it's group-based rather than individual-based.
Interesting. So you're a big researcher. You read, you write. I know you're working on books. Where do you think the research is going? Give me a look to the future for 2021. Where do you think it's going to be? Give me your biggest takeaway.
My fellows are so engaged with having questions that they want answered, particularly research questions. I think one that I've had for a long time, and I've been able to instill it in a few fellows. And I think I've got a brand new fellow who's really engaged, and he's been already doing a lot of research and digging into it. And my concern is with our grassroots sports and these injuries that are happening in our younger people. And I've always thought it was strange that a ninth grader who's playing football, gridiron football, in order for him to play football, he has to have a minimum GPA. He has to meet it, right? A grade point average. He has to be able to have like 2.5 or 3.0 on a 4 scale. And if he doesn't, he can't play football. Well, I understand the principle behind that. I think that's great. We want to make sure they succeed in school first, and then maybe succeed in sports secondly. I get that. But if, let's say he was a 4.0, he's the smartest kid in the class. But from a fitness perspective, he shouldn't be playing football. He's so deconditioned, right? His thumbs are in awesome shape from texting and playing video games, but he just doesn't have the strength. He doesn't have the flexibility. He doesn't have the reaction time to play gridiron football. So we're toying with the idea of establishing what's called an FPA, so a fitness point average. And we have one particular school, it's a rather large secondary school that we're going to try to implement this FPA concept. So yes, they have to have their grades, but now they have to meet an FPA. And the fitness point average would include just body weight stuff. How many in-place body squats can you do? How many push-ups can you do, right? What's your range of motion? Go back to our old presidential fitness awards. You remember that, Dr. Rob, right?
Oh, yes,
I remember it. It's unfortunate we don't it's unfortunate we don't have much of that anymore. Consideration of what is the minimum fitness competency that our youngsters have at this point. And so that's what we want to identify is what is that minimum fitness point average or competency, and can they do 75 in-place squats? Can they do 30 body weight push-ups? We're not really sure what those numbers are. We need to investigate current standard literature on what we think is normal for a ninth grader. How many push-ups should a healthy ninth grader be able to do? Well, a normal healthy ninth grader, let's say it's 20. They should be able to do 20 push-ups. Is that enough to play football though? Right? We might say, yeah, if you want to be healthy, it's 20, but in order to play gridiron football, you need to be able to do 30 body weight push-ups. Same thing with squats and some other things that we're looking at. So that's like some exciting investigative research we're doing now. And then once we kind of figure out what these measurements are probably going to be, these standardized assessments, then we're going to appeal to this larger high school in a neighboring state and see if we can't actually institute and see if we get better outcomes of what? Probably better performance and less injuries.
You know, it's funny. Every time I talk with you and every time I see you, something pops in my head and it keeps coming out, and we should sort of close with this. You're the man who's breaking down the silos in traditional care to put it in integrative, functional, in integrated care. So that's really what we covered over the last 40 minutes. And your Human Performance Center, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do it?
How can they do it? That's great. Well, they can always go to the Northwestern website. That's nwhealth.edu. And when they go and type in the search window, Human Performance, and then they'll see, if they scroll down, they'll see a bunch of information about the Human Performance Center. They'll see little videos of myself and all the fellows, so they can get to know a little bit about the Human Performance Center. My email is there as well. But I can verbalize what my email is to my Northwestern email is, what is it? It's a tstark at nwhealth.edu. tstark@nwhealth.edu. That's my professional email. My personal email, cool, email me, because I've had this since like 1984, I think, this email address. And it's sportchiro@aol.com. sportchiro@aol.com. I think I'm still one of 3 people that have an AOL account.
No doubt, no doubt. It's been my pleasure. And I think what we should do is, we planted a little seed today. Let's come back in 6 months or a year and see what the seed that we planted, where it is. And we'll talk about the little tree that we have growing from that. And let's nurture it and water it a little bit.
That sounds great, Dr. Rob.
Looking forward to seeing you. This has been great. Everybody, Dr. Tim Stark, Human Performance Center, Northwestern Health Sciences Center. Dr. Rob, always yours in health.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Rob.